Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our beautiful Café Scientifique. I'm really happy to be here today. And our topic today is destination marketing caught between overtourism and climate change. How tourist destinations can navigate in an ever-changing marketplace. I think we have never had such a big title. I love that. And today we have as our guest Dr. Dimitris Koutoulas. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you so much. And can I call you Dimitris?
Of course you can.
Thank you so much. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself? First things first, thank you so much for coming. And tell us, how do you come here today to talk to us?
Okay, so thank you so much for having me here. I'm in Berlin with one of my professional capacities as a tourism marketing and management consultant. So the ITB, the ITB is running currently in town. It's the largest tourism trade fair in the world. So I'm coming here every year together with thousands of other travel industry professionals. So this brought me to Berlin.
Yes, lucky us.
No, lucky me. And it's really nice for me talking to colleagues with in my other professional capacity, which is teaching. I'm assistant professor at the University of Patras. I'm teaching there things that have to do with tourism management, with hotel management, tourism marketing. So these disciplines are the ones that I'm teaching there.
Okay, and how was ITB? Did you enjoy it? Was it a nice time? Was it a big event?
Yes, it's always a busy event, so it's a great place learning the latest developments in the tourism industry. So it's really useful for somebody like me coming here every year and putting the finger on the pulse of what's happening in the industry.
Great, and you can share this knowledge with us. Before we go to our slides, I want to say thank you to our audience here today. Thank you online guests as well. If you have any questions, please write them on your paper, because then at the end we have Q&A questions and Q&A session, and then we can go over them. Is that all right? Good. Let's go. A bird told me you have a lot of slides for us today. You want to talk a little bit about them?
Yes, okay, so let's quickly go through those slides. We are going to talk about DMOs. So let's make it clear what we mean by DMOs. You can see the initials, what the initials stand for. It's about destination marketing organizations. Those organizations over the years became also responsible to take care of some destination management tasks as well. So it's more correct to talk about destination marketing and management organizations, but to keep it simple, we are going to refer to DMOs. So we are going to have a look at the work that DMOs are doing under these new challenges that we want to discuss today: overtourism and climate change.
Yes.
So I myself have been working in my capacity as a consultant and a project manager with quite a large number of DMOs over the years. So based on this, let's say, personal involvement in destination marketing and management, I would like to share some thoughts about those issues.
We're happy to hear.
So we're going to talk about overtourism and climate change. This, I think, is becoming quite a familiar picture in a growing number of tourist destinations. So this is how overtourism looks like. Places overrun by tourists, places that have become so successful as destinations, so popular that they are getting crowded, they are getting overrun by visitors, and I don't know how much fun it is and how much visitors are enjoying being in places such as Venice or Barcelona or Santorini during the peak tourist season. So there are several definitions of overtourism out there. Let's have a look at one of those. So overtourism describes destinations where hosts or guests, locals or visitors, feel that there are too many visitors and that the quality of life in the area or the quality of the experience has deteriorated unacceptably. So this is a way of defining overtourism. So the Germans are saying, zu viel des Guten, so it's too much of a success for those places. And this, of course, is affecting not only the quality of the experience that visitors are having, but, and this is the most crucial thing from my perspective, it's affecting the quality of life of the residents. Here, for instance, you can see some pictures from the streets of Barcelona, how residents of Barcelona are reacting to the situation. They do not feel welcome in their own city. They cannot afford to live in their city any longer.
Yes.
So this is a situation that we need to be dealing with, because the feelings towards tourism are growing more and more negative.
Yeah, and if I may ask already our first question.
Of course.
Because I always connect over-tourism with other problems, or let's say phenomena that are caused by tourism itself. So I usually tend to look to the bigger picture when I usually touch the word of over-tourism. So for example, gentrification.
Exactly.
Is a whole another process that also comes with over-tourism. And I was living in Portugal, as I was mentioning to you before, for 4 years in Lisbon. So the locals, they not only get aggressive over tourism and tourists at the end, but also to the whole trade of tourism, and they literally give up of the city to tourism, and they leave it away. And in tourism, and especially for marketing, this is our product. So we're literally seeing our product go away. So is this covered by these DMOs? Do you think we in marketing are taking a look not only to over-tourism as let's say, excluded or alone phenomenon, or do you see all these elements going together?
Yes, there are certainly multiple factors playing together. You mentioned gentrification. So here in Berlin, we are witnessing gentrification of different neighborhoods since the 1990s. So after the wall fell, we saw several places such as Prenzlauer Berg. This is where I've been living while in Berlin, so I witnessed it firsthand. So we saw how the price of real estate exploded, and how people who were living there for many years cannot afford this place any longer. So gentrification has been an issue in places like Berlin for several years, but now with Airbnb, with short-term rentals, this whole situation has become even worse.
Yes.
So we are seeing this displacement of residents by tourists who are using the very same apartments for short stays.
Yes.
And this puts the question that we need to be dealing with. So DMOs, who are they answering to?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So when this started many decades ago, DMOs first started working in order to benefit local tourist businesses. So that was their job, you know? Bring visitors, help local tourist businesses make more money.
Okay.
After tourism started to develop and visitor numbers started to grow, then DMOs also started dealing with quality issues. So they were answering to visitors. So are we offering truly a good quality of a visitor experience to the tourists that are coming to our places? Over time, DMOs also started considering people working in the tourism sector, you know, because in many places where tourism developed rapidly, there weren't enough workers, not especially trained workers. This is why DMOs started also, some of them started engaging in training, in providing professional training. So this expanded the mandate of DMOs. DMOs also need to be thinking about how they are perceived, or how their work is being perceived by authorities, either local authorities or national authorities, depending also on the scope of each DMO. Why? Because the budget of the DMOs very much depends on local governments or national governments deciding how much funding they will get. Because DMOs are non-profit organizations.
Yes.
They are marketing organizations, but they engage in marketing not to make money for themselves, but they engage in marketing in order to bring more income to a countries or a regions or a city's tourist businesses.
Yes.
So these are non-profit organizations, and then they depend on their funding on some local or national governments. So this is why we are seeing a number of DMOs engaging very much in lobbying efforts to secure their funding. However, with recent developments and with the great success that a growing number of destinations are having, which is affecting, as we already mentioned, the quality of life of residents, residents are now becoming increasingly the focus of the job being done by DMOs. And this, as you can see, is forming what I would call the DMO stakeholder diamond. So when we're talking about, the planning approach of a DMO to how they communicate with the market, we should always keep in mind that we should be working not just for the tourist industry, but we should also consider local residents, local authorities, because if we are successful in attracting a large number of visitors, then their life is being affected. And we need to be able to explain what we are doing in order, to create jobs, to improve the quality of life of our residents, to help local development. So we should always keep that in mind.
Okay, can I ask you a quick question, Dimitris?
Of course.
Where are the tourists there? Visitors.
Visitors, yes.
Visitors,
yes.
Why don't you use the word tourist then?
Well,
why visitors?
Over the years, there's a bit of a negative connotation with the word tourist.
Okay, tell me more.
So if you ask people on the streets, are you a tourist? Nobody, I think, is going to feel comfortable saying that, yes, I'm a tourist.
Okay.
But everybody feels fine, saying, yes, I'm a visitor.
Okay, I get you.
This is why we are also using quite frequently the term visitor economy as an alternative to the expression tourist economy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, what are the repercussions of over-tourism on the life? So here, for instance, you see what can happen if we have uncontrolled development in a place. Benidorm used to be a sleepy fishing village in Spain back in the 60s, and then suddenly, the developers came. Benidorm is one of the most popular destination for British travelers, mostly British travelers. But what's the beauty of a place, of what used to be a small traditional village, being now populated by high-rise buildings?
Yes.
Can you imagine what kind of discounting business people operating there need to use in order to fill those thousands of hotel beds that they have put in place?
Yes.
So here we see how a place can be degraded by uncontrolled development.
Yes.
If greed takes over, this is what happens. And this should not be happening. So we should be thinking about how to put some control in those developments. Let's have a look at some of the headlines that we recently had in the media about this problem of over-tourism. In the Canary Islands, we have people going to the streets, protesting that they are being priced out of their home place, that they cannot afford to live there.
Yeah, that was the most recent case we had,
Exactly.
Especially people really organized, as you saw, let's use your own words, the whole other stakeholders organized against the visitors, right? And they really made a huge protest in the Canary Islands, and it was all everywhere in the media.
Because the wages that they earn are not enough to cover the cost of living. They cannot find a place to stay. Then we have the problem with water scarcity, so lack of water. And yes, people are not comfortable with that. Maybe you remember this from a few months ago in Barcelona, residents going around with water pistols, aiming at tourists. It was a symbolic gesture, but it shows how people are really not happy with how things are developing. Prague also has the same problem, apartment buildings that used to house residents are now taken over by short-term rentals, by Airbnbs, and people still living in those apartment buildings are sharing stories about, people puking and pissing in the stairs, having parties throughout the night, not respecting the people who are living there.
Yeah.
The same in Barcelona. Here we are seeing a clash between the DMO management and the mayor of the city, because there are clashing agendas.
Yes.
DMO managers are getting fired because they don't seem to care enough about the interests of the residents. Yes. This is what we mentioned earlier.
Probably Barcelona is the most critical case, one of the most critical cases we have nowadays as well in tourism, that all these stakeholders I mentioned before, they are crashing against each other, and it's complicated. We as in tourism industry, as I say, we need to find solution for this. Of course, it needs to come from us, definitely.
This is also happening in many other places. I mean, I live in Athens. I'm an Athenian. It has become really difficult for students who are studying at the university in Athens finding a place to live.
Yes.
I guess that also many of you are facing the same difficulty, finding an apartment in Berlin.
Welcome to Berlin.
Yes, exactly. So this is something we should be thinking about. So how can we deal with that situation?
Yes.
So we are seeing some conflicting viewpoints. Mm-hmm. So there are people in the industry who are thinking that, overtourism is rather an indication of poorly managing the visitor streams so that we can better manage those capacities. But there are others who believe that we should really put a stop to development. We cannot continue developing as we were doing over the previous years. So there must be put some stop at some point in order to getting some kind of control of the whole situation. So there is this debate.
Mm-hmm. So Dimitris,
yes,
are you
yes.
team stop development, or you team should we get a better management?
I think that those people who are saying we need better management of visitor flows, they have some valid points.
Okay.
So yes, by better handling seasonality, for instance, we can definitely accommodate more visitors without worsening the whole situation.
Yes.
But this can solve the problem up to a specific point.
Yes.
But sooner or later, we need to put a stop. And Amsterdam is a great example. So here we can see Amsterdam, for instance, has taken the decision to ban short-term rentals. Here we see that they are also banning new hotel rooms. So the only way that you can build a new hotel in Amsterdam is to remove an older one from operation. So you need to buy an old hotel and either renovate this hotel in the existing building or create a new hotel and turn the older hotel into an apartment building. So we are seeing the city of Amsterdam, for instance, deciding that they do not need any additional hotel beds. So they put a stop to increasing the capacity, and it's about increasing the income from the existing capacity. It's about upgrading the existing hotels. This is how we are going to increase our income from tourists, from tourism, without growing the visitor numbers. Mm-hmm. So this is a very interesting approach. Barcelona is banishing cruise ships. Amsterdam is going to close its cruise terminal. The same is happening in Venice, where the large cruise ships are banned from the lagoon of Venice, so they cannot enter the lagoon, as you can see happening in this photo.
In Venice, in terms of cruise ships, most likely you have Italian colleagues that could help me later. They're probably the most critical towards ships, because there's 4,000, 5,000 people in only one, and they have 5, 6. And they all come every day to the city. And it's an island, literally, right? So it's complicated to manage, definitely.
I think that cruises are the most extreme example of overtourism, because the benefits to the destination are also very limited. Because cruise ship passengers spend a limited amount of money in the port of Colso, many places are now thinking about limiting cruise ship arrivals. Spain has introduced a new strategy of making more money with less visitors. So it's about upgrading the offerings and encouraging a higher per capita spending. And this is now the way forward to growing tourism and not just bringing
Mass
in
tourism,
more people.
right?
Yes, exactly. New York is banning Airbnb. So no more short-term rentals or short-term rentals under very strict rules being operated from now on. Another example is Dubrovnik. You know, it's a historic town with old monuments which need to be protected. So what did they do? They introduced a code of conduct. So visitors are expected to be respectful of the monuments, to behave properly, to be dressed, not to eat on the streets. And if they go against those rules, they are getting fined. So these are examples of how different places are trying to deal with this phenomenon. So this was a reference to overtourism.
Overtourism. And now?
But we also have another problem,
issue.
which is the climate crisis.
Yes.
This is also affecting what we are doing in destination marketing. Now, even the most official people, as you can see, this is the EU commissioner is talking about how the climate crisis is representing a threat to tourism. So we need to be dealing with this issue. Climate crisis affects tourism in different ways. Maybe you remember the floodings in Valencia, affecting a large number of tourists. Maybe you remember the forest fires, those extreme forest fires in several places around the Mediterranean. One of the most extreme ones is the one pictured on the island of Rhodes in Greece. Maybe you remember the heat waves of recent summers, also affecting tourists, with tourists dying because they were exposed to the sun and this extreme heat. So this is also affecting how we are operating. Now we have a new term. Maybe you have heard about coolcations.
No, tell me more.
It's about having vacations in a cooler climate. So what is a growing number of people doing? Instead of going, during July, August to the typical summer destinations in the Mediterranean, they are going to the north in order to escape the extreme heat.
Oh.
So we are seeing new visitor flows emerging because of the impact of the climate change. And how is this affecting destination marketing?
Our main question, right?
Our main question, exactly. So I would like to share a few thoughts with you about this topic. We are now reapproaching, what our marketing objectives should be. Maybe you remember traditionally, if you talk to DMO professionals, they would do, we should bring more visitors. So this is traditionally the #1 objective of a DMO. And also historically, this is also the reason why DMOs were formed, in order to attract more tourists.
Yes.
So over many decades, DMOs operated by having this as their main objective, bring in more visitors.
Yes.
As the industry matured, then we started becoming more targeted, Then we were thinking about, it's not just about bringing more people, but it's about the income. So how can we increase the income? Because, as you mentioned earlier, we have mass tourism with a very limited per capita spending. So DMOs were working on increasing the per capita spending. Another marketing objective was to limit the dependence on just one market. So for instance, the Austrian mountain destinations in the Alps, they very much depend on the German market. Or there are islands in Greece, Zakynthos, for instance, which very much depended on British tourists. Or there are places around the Mediterranean depending very much on Russian tourists. So it's not good to have such a dependence. So one of the key marketing objectives was, to spread the risk, broaden our customer base in order to avoid such dependence. But now, with all those recent developments that we mentioned, over-tourism, climate change, we are thinking about also approaching our marketing objectives in a different way. Now we are considering new themes, as you can also see. Better distributing tourist demand has become of increasing importance. Distributing tourist demand both in time and in space. In time means, in other words, tackling seasonality. Greek islands are overrun by tourists during 3 to 4 months, and then it's getting quite empty or quite slow. So we are thinking, okay, how can we extend the tourist season, which is also going to be extremely helpful in tackling over-tourism.
Yes.
And also distributing tourist demand in space. Let's take, sorry for the numerous references to Greek islands, but these are the places that I'm more familiar with.
Right?
So you have larger islands such as Crete, and you have 90% of tourist traffic being concentrated on the north coast. So you have this very crowded spaces, and then you have wide stretches of uncrowded places. So it's in everybody's interest to spread our tourist traffic, encourage visitors to also go to those less popular places. They are going to enjoy being there. It's going to be less crowded. Local businesses are going to have more income. So it's a win-win achieving such an objective.
Yes.
And I think two additional points here concerning marketing objectives. Quick crisis recovery has also become very important because the number of crises seems to have grown over recent years. I remember the 90s and the 2000s, we had an occasional crisis here and then, but now I feel that almost every year there's a major crisis affecting tourism.
Yes.
And it's a pity that many DMOs are still unprepared to professionally handle such a crisis. So we need to be prepared. And we are even considering controlling and limiting visitor numbers because of this over-tourism situation.
Which in marketing we call demarketing, right?
Exactly.
It's we try to limit the amount of tourists, in this case, our clients in marketing, right? Which is usually a solution that DMOs or people from the industry don't like to hear, right? We want more. We will need more tourists. We need more clients. And then when we tell about, no, we don't sell more, we kind of stay like, no, we have other solutions. So,
and here we come again to the mandate of a DMO.
Yes.
Who are we answering to? Is it our local tourist businesses or is it also the residents? It would be shocking.
Yes.
But we have actually come
nowadays,
to the point that we need to
sounds
consider.
Sounds interesting, right? Sounds
exactly.
interesting.
Exactly. So our marketing objectives are changing, and with those changing objectives, we also need to adjust our actual marketing activities. So let's have a look how these adjustments are shaping. So we need to revisit branding. So branding, destination branding used to be about, our USP, come for the great sea and sun, or come for our great skiing, or come for the history, for the great food, for our culture, for our lifestyle. Now we need to expand this and also include references to sustainability.
Yes.
To to being respectful and protective of our local traditions and our local lifestyle. So we need to reevaluate destination brands to see if they are in line with what people are currently caring about. So branding needs to be revisited from this perspective.
And that's the biggest probably contradiction of marketing itself, because we work to bring more tourists increase the prices, more prices we remove the locals are our product. So that's the point here that is complicated, or the balance that is complicated for us to, and the challenge that we're here to discuss, right? Who has the solution? There are thousands of solutions, but which one should we follow, right?
Let me add one more element to what you just described. So the prices are rising for residents, so the cost of living is increasing. However, through overdevelopment, we come to the point that we are getting into price competition, and that the prices for tourists are dropping. And we are seeing this happening around many mass tourist destinations, where you can actually enjoy a week's vacation at ridiculously low prices. So while it's becoming more expensive for locals living there, it's becoming cheaper for tourists to come and visit, because we have overcapacity and we have those empty beds which we need to fill. So exactly. It's this a contradictory situation that we are witnessing.
And I also tend to think, for example, I have a very good friend traveling to Paris these days, and she's complaining that the prices in Paris are unbelievable. And then we have these solutions. Let's spread people over time and over space. But where in Paris? Where should we send people to? Or Venezia? Where should we send people? There's no space anymore. So over time I can see these solutions, but over space, Dubrovnik, where should we send people? We're here to discuss that, right? Where should we send to people?
Copenhagen has done a very, very interesting a job on this. So in 2016, they introduced the new at this time, a tourist strategy, where they proclaimed that it's the end of tourism as we know it. So that was their main motto. And they introduced the concept of localhood. And they encouraged visitors to not go just to the, to the bucket list places in Copenhagen, but to also explore the lesser visited neighborhoods. And they succeeded in spreading visitation all over the city by presenting the special character, the vibes, the energy of each different neighborhood. So it was very, very interesting to see how they stopped presenting Copenhagen, as a place with 2-3 landmarks to visit, and they started emphasizing a growing number of different neighborhoods which were not the normal place that tourists would visit.
Yeah, and even if we take a look, it's a little bit outside of the European market. Let's take a look at, I just saw my Thai colleague, and then I was like, oh my God, Thailand as well. And then we have so many islands, and then they're exploring another spaces over there as well, which is super critical. And maybe probably the most critical example in Asia we have, Thailand, or even in Mexico. We started to go over the coast down because, of course, there are mass tourism, because the big market is right next to it. So we see a lot of examples dealing with all these issues. And, of course, the sustainability point is also coming up as well.
As you mentioned, Thailand. Thailand is an excellent example. There is the work being done by the TAT, the Thailand Tourism Authority, which is encouraging tourist development at the local level. So they are encouraging homestays. They are developing new food neighborhoods, exactly in line with this marketing objective we mentioned for spreading out tourist visitation in space. So we can do that. If we work on it, then we can have the results quite quickly. Because visitors are interested in finding new places, new experiences, going to places where nobody else or very few people have been there before them. So it's really worth working on
work.
that. So, what else do we need to adjust concerning destination marketing? It's about highlighting experiences during low season and in less frequented parts of the destination. It's about spreading a visitation in space and in time. How are we going to achieve that? By highlighting what is worth doing out of season and what it's worth visiting in the lesser known parts. So a DMO should be working on that. Identify low season activities and low season experiences. And I myself have been working with several DMOs exactly on this point, and also how we can encourage visitors to go also to places that they are not that familiar with. So this is an important mandate, I think, for a DMO during those strange times that we are going through. And it's also working on the narrative. So what's the DMO? The DMO is what we usually call the storyteller in chief. So this is one key task for a DMO, developing a nice narrative about what it's worth experiencing. And DMOs should start incorporating references to sustainability in the narrative, what they are doing in order to protect the nature, the culture, the heritage, the traditions, the lifestyle, the quality of life. How they should include in their narrative how DMOs are working for tourism to contribute to the well-being of both visitors and the local community. We also saw the example of Dubrovnik. So, for instance, our narrative could also include how we can, encourage positive behavior by visitors. And there is this amazing a case by a small Pacific nation which is named Palau. They have done an excellent campaign of how to make visitors behave more responsibly when visiting those small and very fragile islands. And also, this is also important to include in our narrative, how we can encourage local spending. Visitors are buying stuff during their stay, but why should they buy, souvenirs made in another country and not buy locally produced items? So this is also important for DMOs to highlight what products are being produced locally. It can be wine, it can be cheese, it can be handicrafts or whatever, so that more money is going to go to the local community.
Yes.
Another aspect that we should consider when talking about destination marketing is that we need to come up with new products. So when you're talking about products in relation to DMOs, we're talking about highlighting specific travel experiences that our destinations are offering. And so as we are seeing visitors having now new sensibilities, we need to make sure that we have proper products that are in line with those new sensibilities. For instance, maybe you remember the issue of flight shaming a few years ago. So the market was quick to react. We saw some tour operators coming up with flight-free holidays. Here is an example of a British tour operator offering flight-free holidays even to faraway places, even to Greece. There are holiday packages using train or bus or ferry, thus avoiding using the flight. So we have a part of the market having the sensibility. So we should be able to take care of their needs and provide them with this option. Or we are seeing people wanting to travel sustainably. So a growing number of DMOs has responded to this. Here we see the German national DMO promoting sustainable accommodation throughout the country. Or another example concerning accessibility. You know, a destination should be proud about being accessible. This is also a sensibility that is not new, but has grown over recent years. 20 years ago, not many DMO professionals, I have to admit, cared about, you know, being accessible. But nowadays, we are seeing that we should have those accessibility credentials.
Yes.
And as you can see, another example, again from Germany, about, you know, promoting accessibility. Or let's take an example from Berlin, being a vegan destination. So are we dealing properly with visitors who don't want to eat animal products? And Berlin is considered a heaven for vegan travelers. So it's a sensibility that we need to respect and accommodate. So, marketing is changing, we are having new priorities, planning for crisis management, as we already mentioned, and crisis recovery is among those priorities. We need to have a crisis management plan in place. Not many DMOs have it, but they are currently working on it. I myself have been involved in such projects. And you mentioned demarketing. We are now arrived at the point where some DMOs are implementing anti-marketing measures.
Yes.
You know, Amsterdam, for instance, had this stay away campaign. We have pricing measures. So destinations are trying to price out a number of tourists by increasing the cost of visitation. And there are even prohibitions, no? Prohibiting. Let's have a look at some examples. So as I said, Amsterdam introduced a campaign, an advertising campaign titled Stay Away, aimed at young British tourists who were visiting Amsterdam as part of how do we call them? So bachelor and bachelorette parties.
Yes.
So the only thing they wanted to do in Amsterdam was getting drunk and getting laid. Mm-hmm. And we had these scenes of, you know, of young British visitors walking drunk through the streets of Amsterdam, puking everywhere, pissing everywhere, behaving in a horrible way. So the authorities of Amsterdam came to the point where they made this campaign. There's even a video that you can look up where they say, stay away. If you are going to get drunk and be out on the streets, you're going to be arrested and fined. So this is an anti-marketing campaign.
Yes. Because also there is I think I believe that Amsterdam is also a point, a very peculiar point, because the product, it has a lot to do with drugs and how do you visit for, I'm going little by little when I'm saying, you guys can see, right? So it's related to drugs, it's a lot of related to sensitive topics, let's say it that way. And that's why they need to do this counter campaign, because the product was very much associated with sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
And the red light district.
The red light district.
Exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm. And something similar is happening in other destinations. So in Sevilla, for instance, we had those ridiculously dressed, you know, bachelor parties, as you can see in the picture, and the city has prohibited those parties, so you are not allowed getting around in this condition. So no more booze tours to Sevilla. Prague has prohibited pub crawling. Are you familiar with the concept of pub crawling? You know, getting drunk, getting pissed in a very bad way. So now it is prohibited in order to reclaim the city from those drunken tourists.
Yes.
Italy is banning, you know, those locks. It's prohibited of leaving the key outside the door. if you want to rent out your home as a short stay rental, from now on, you are required to be there to welcome your guests, not leave, the key. And there are people from local authorities going around and removing those locks that you can see on the picture if they come across this. Venice is introducing a tourist tax, so you need to pay in order to get into the city. And Venice is also banning large tour groups with loudspeakers, because it's extremely annoying having, from the morning until the evening, having one such group after the other coming across your small street where you are living.
Am I a bad person to actually like this one? Because I actually like this one. You cannot see all the time.
Okay. Barcelona has increased the parking fees for buses. So for day visitors, because day visitors are leaving only a limited amount of money, so the city wants to discourage these visitors, and they have increased the cost for those groups to be arriving. So these are some examples of anti-marketing or demarketing measures that DMOs are implementing around Europe.
Okay.
So, and this is my last slide. So we are experiencing an ever-changing marketplace. Now the next frontier is AI, artificial intelligence, which I guess over the next 1.5 and 2 years will radically change how we are implementing destination marketing. So we are awaiting to see what happens. We are seeing some first changes, but I think we are at the very, very beginning of the impact that AI is going to have on destination marketing. So I think enough with the slides.
Yeah.
Maybe we should open up the discussion
Very good.
with our audience.
Guys, thank you so much. Let's clap our hands to Dimitris. Very good. So, a lot of information. I'm pretty sure colleagues here and online have some questions. You're really good on time, I should say. Congratulations for that. I'm impressed.
Thank you for
and
that.
then we have, if you online have some questions, please just type on chat. I'm here with my tablet. We can check it up. And let's use the microphone here to our colleagues first. Who wants to start?
Is there any question you'd like to ask? Any comments?
Any comments, questions? So
free.
we have one there.
And
Just tell us your name and your question.
Hi, my name is Bennett. I'm a tourism and hospitality student. So, like limiting or restricting tourists from, different forms, to a certain extent, it would again diminish the industry by itself. Because again, when restrictions are put in place, a lot of people would highly come to the factor that they would rather not go there and choose somewhere else over that particular destination. Do you think that over the point of time, this can apparently lead to the tourism industry actually declining? Or is this limiting going to impact a high number of tourists so that, because again, the supply is going to be less, but the demand is going to be quite higher for that shorter supply?
It's a quite composite question that you asked with many interesting
Points,
aspects and points. Those measures that we just saw are mostly aimed at day visitors.
Yeah.
So people who are leaving a very limited amount of money and lots of trash. Yeah. And destinations are dealing with the social costs of those limited spending day visitors. Yeah. So I find it's quite a low-hanging fruit for local authorities to be aiming at day visitors, either coming from a cruise ship or sleeping someplace else and coming with a bus or by train. So I think that it makes sense for a place suffering from over-tourism to start by limiting day visitors. Because the financial cost of that is quite limited, also considering the cost that those day visitors are creating locally. Then you have the overnight guests, the overnight visitors. You know, for me as a destination marketeer, I understand my job as filling the existing beds. And I do that, you know, considering beds provided by tourist businesses. Now we have the situation with the short-term rentals, with thousands of beds that are not operated by professionals, by businesses, but by private people who want to have an additional income. I think that this explosion in short-term rental has, you know, changed the face of the tourism industry. So, there is the risk that you described that we may be shrinking the visitor volume, and of course some businesses are going to suffer by that. But as long as, you know, tourist businesses that are licensed are operating according to the legal standards and are employing people, as long as those businesses have sufficient occupancy, then we are fine. I wouldn't worry about short-term rentals staying empty, because I think that those places should be at the availability of residents and not tourists. But I would definitely be worrying if, you know, hotels would stay empty or other licensed accommodation. So it's a bit nuanced, what you just referred to. And we should always keep the cost in mind. So it's not just, okay, there are people coming and spending some money. They are also provoking some costs to the destination. So we should make a cost-benefit analysis in order to be sure if it's in our best interest to limit that part of the visitor volume that is not profitable for our place.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Next one.
Hi, my name is Rochelle. I'm a student here who's studying international business. And my question to you is, what are your thoughts on budget traveling? Because there are people who travel on a budget to a certain place, so they go look out for the cheapest hotel, the cheapest food there is at the cost of their own health and safety. But at the same time, there are places whose economy runs on tourism, but then these kind of budget travelers come, they get the bad experience because they're on the budget, and they go around with the word of mouth, or they post it on social media. And do you think that affects the economy, or like how do you think budget traveling affects the place's economy?
So budget travel is a very crucial part of the market. I very much believe in what we can call the democratization of travel. So travel used to be a privilege of you know, the rich people. Since the 60s, with the advent of tour operators, we saw this increasing democratization. So this was a big achievement, you know, packaged holidays. It was a milestone because people with lower income, even unemployed people in industrialized nations, had the purchasing power to spend a week in one Mediterranean destination. So this was important. Also, young people, students who don't have much income and money to spend on their travel, it's very important for them to have those experiences, traveling around on a limited budget. So on the other hand, with what we just described with over-tourism, we have this problem with residents suffering of too much tourism. So it's not an easy thing to balance. You know, on the one hand, you want to make it possible to everybody to have, you know, the privilege to visit your place, but on the other hand, you also want to do something for the quality of life of your residents who cannot suffer about this. So I think that budget accommodation definitely has a place. This is why youth hostels, for instance, remain very popular and are a mainstay in accommodation, in the accommodation industry. short-term rentals, Airbnbs have also provided a new way of traveling on a budget, but we cannot ignore the social costs that come with this expansion of short-term rentals. So we need to balance and see where we are going to end up.
Thank you so much.
And if I may add just a small comment to this, this is a very complex question. Looks simple, but it's so complex in a way that imagine we as individuals, here talk about social costs, but what about your individual cost? Because you go to these communities, you go to these destinations, or we've mentioned so many here, and then you take so much from these communities, and what is your contribution there? Exactly. What is your return for these people? And sometimes you'll travel in budget, and of course I'm super pro-democratization as well. I don't want this speech to be like, let's just make the rich travel again, because that's not the intention. But you bring your own food, you don't connect with the locals, and then you only it's complicated. The way you travel should take back, or let's give back in this way what you are taking from this community, and these people are not connecting these two dots. And this is not should not say this is only let's exclude the low budgeters from tourism. High-end, or let's say high-spend budget tourists can also do that. So for example, when you go to Mexico, as I've mentioned before, there are a lot of destinations that they go to resorts, they go there, they only eat in the resorts, they only stay in the resorts, they pay extremely high, a lot of that part of that planet, and then they just go back. Literally, they only stay with Americans, they don't talk with Americans, they eat American food, and then we'll be like, hey, something is happening here. So this is not an exclusive behavior from low-budget tourists. It's a market thing. Mm-hmm. In marketing, we really need to address that, but it's a long process. It's not it's a very good question, because we make us think all of these aspects, as you say, but it's so way bigger than only low-budget tourists as well. Thank you. The next question.
Hi, I'm Dr. Benedetta. I'm teaching tourism here, and really good question. I wanted to ask about it, so thanks. Because I'm interested in accessibility. So I think for me, like coming from teaching, overtourism and climate change are really relevant topic in class in most of the modules. And I think it's a bit of a challenge sometimes to teach them and prepare them to actually then go to the industry, and being an industry which is so disruptive and there's so much happening. Coming from the class, and then prepare them to actually be valuable for going out there and get a job. So I'd just like to ask if you have any tips or suggestions how we can improve the teaching when we cover such topics in class.
Very good. This is an excellent point that you make. The more exposure our students have to the industry and the society that is being affected by tourism, the better. So it's quite useful for our students to be talking to entrepreneurs, to people working in the industry, to residents of popular tourist destinations. I guess that there are some citizen initiatives who are very vocal about the impact of tourism. So I think it's important that our students are getting exposed to these different viewpoints, so that they can have a better and a deeper understanding about the industry, and also to be thinking about their own contribution and their own role in this. So I think that nowadays we are forced to also take the social aspects into consideration in our teaching, not just, the pure industry view, as we used to do for many years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any other question? One more?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Camelia. I'm also a big fan of tourism. So I really like the topic because, as Benedetta mentioned, it's a very challenging topic by itself. Because I always thought over-tourism is such a paradox. You make so much money of it, but at the same time, you don't want people to come. And you've mentioned a lot of examples, but one thing that was very peculiar is For me, I think European countries, how they deal with it usually is completely different from the Asian market. We mentioned, for example, Thailand. I mean, in Europe, once you get a Schengen visa, for example, you can travel very easily to other countries, which in my opinion, one of the reasons why this creates over-tourism, because it's very easy for you to go around. But then for Asian countries, each and everyone has very peculiar ways to deal with it. When I was in Singapore, for example, I mean, you were very scared to commit anything or to throw garbage, or I was really on my toes because you get fined literally over anything, which I think was a very good, very good example and approach. They're not really in your face, like in Barcelona, getting guns and like, you know, shooting you with water guns, which I think they had, exactly, which I think at some point they had to because they couldn't see really any change. So do you have such, do you have in your mind a country that did actually such measures that made you think, wow, this is really, you know, such a genius thing to tackle this without really making tourists feel bad about coming to the country?
Well, Bhutan is a very interesting case because they have this tax, this tourist tax. So for every day you spend in Bhutan, you are expected to pay $100 as a tax. So if you are going to visit Bhutan for 7 days, you're going to pay $700 just for being there, in addition to all the other travel costs. So this makes you very appreciative, and you feel really privileged being there because you have paid a lot of money just to breathe Bhutanese air. So it's about making the destination exclusive. So I think this is an excellent approach, and we should take a lesson from that.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Do you have any other questions?
Thank you very much for your rich presentation. So my name is Ahmed. I'm a student in digital marketing and working for a small hotel as a receptionist. Yeah.
Good to hear. He's my student. Good to hear that he's working. I was like, yay!
Thank you very much. Proud.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
We are proud. The lecturers are proud.
I'm just wondering because the hotel where I'm working is a small hotel, but has a specific concept. It's barrière-frei hotel. It's dedicated 100% for disabled people. I mean, like all the room can be used for 100% disabled people, including like beds, like hospitals, and also materials. And now the question is for Berlin and the policy, the future politics of the government maybe, as Berlin is ranked on the top 15th destination this year, according to TripAdvisor. Do you consider Berlin as already saturated city that can touch maybe the potential in the market or for new investors, maybe in some concepts like sustainable hotels, 100% sustainable hotels, or for disabled people, like growing or expanding in chains in Berlin or in other German cities? And thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a very, very interesting point that you are making. I've been working with a number of hotel investors and hoteliers in developing either a new concept for a hotel or developing the concept for a major renovation of an existing hotel. And I always stress the importance of specialization. So the more specialized a hospitality concept is, the more profitable it becomes because it faces less competition. It is not forced to get into price competition, but it has the opportunity to charge higher prices because of its specialization. So you are describing a highly accessible hotel, and there's definitely a market for this kind of hospitality. And there are dozens of other potential scenarios for a hotel to specialize. So there are some very creative, very interesting hotel concepts that we can consider depending on the local market conditions, on the demand for a specific destination, etc., etc. So I think that this is a very positive way for a hotel investor to go into specialization, especially in a city such as Berlin, which is, I think, overdeveloped. I would say that in Berlin we are having an overcapacity in hotel beds. And you can see that by quite a low average daily room rate. The ADR in Berlin is very low compared to other European capitals, which shows that we have overcapacity in the city. And in order to overcome the price pressure from that, getting such a specialized concept is the way forward. Thank you.
And if I may add, again, the one interesting destination that has done something very peculiar was Austria. But it is not Austria, the whole country, the capital. They decided to limit the amount of short-term rentals. And the city itself decided to own some apartments there to go against the housing crisis, which is something that could be in the direction of Berlin as well. And I tend to say that, especially on these moments that we are questioning, are we overcrowded? Are we oversaturated? That's the word you used. We see by the amount of offers that we are actually not, but the prices still go up because we have so many options of the offer is so big in terms of hospitality that the prices are, the people are charging the prices they want for the good ones, for the specialized ones.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we have this huge market that everybody's trying to charge more. And of course, in tourism, you always get more, so we always decide for Airbnbs. And then Austria decided, no, we are limiting the amount of Airbnbs, which is not necessarily tax, more money. You should pay 100 euros every day you are here. We just limit the amount of tourists coming, which is a whole other conversation. Exactly. It is also another solution. Please.
Hi, I'm so sorry for hogging the mic again.
No, no.
But it's a little sensitive, but I'm just saying, I'm asking that, you know, when tourists come to new places and they behave in a certain way that the locals don't like, do you think it sparks a new sense of racism or like discrimination or like the way people see a visitor? And then when they are actually coming to reside there, do you think it causes clashes between the people? So
Good luck.
you,
Good luck going to this one.
like, what are your opinions on that, if you can answer?
Well, you know, in the early days of tourism, and I'm thinking about the Greek islands, it was a shock for the Greek society of that time, a very conservative society, of having North Europeans bathing naked, you know, nudism. You know, FKK is a lifestyle for Germans. I mean, I grew up myself in Germany, so I'm very familiar how normal it is getting naked, but it was a shock. And I still remember how mad people used to be when they saw those naked and those terrible foreigners coming and, you know, polluting the minds of our youth. Okay, time has passed since then, but still you have those issues with drunk visitors. So, of course, tourism means mutual understanding and mutual respect between hosts and guests, and there should be some limits. Okay, and currently what we are witnessing in Europe, the limit is, please don't puke on the street, don't piss on the street, don't start screaming and singing loud, you know, after midnight in the streets. So I think this is the absolute minimum that we can expect from our visitors. Okay, of course we are respectful that they chose us, that they are here, that they are spending their money, but still some code of conduct, as we saw in the example of Dubrovnik, is something that we can expect them to adhere to.
And I'll make a comment as well. Racist people are racist people, period. So with tourism or without tourism, Because if they're not coming for tourism, they're coming for migrants are coming. Other types of visitors are coming. So professional tourism is also coming. So we cannot stigmatize only tourists, and this relationship with locals and racism obviously has a huge part on it. We saw some examples here are towards racism as well, because we love, when we see that they love American tourists, but they hate these other types of tourists. There's something wrong here happening, right? And then we should, of course, democratize is the solution for this. But at the end of the day, racist people will be racist people with tourism or without tourism. And there's a lot we can do, and this goes beyond tourism and tourism destinations. It's out of our hands in this case, but it will always happen, unfortunately. Thank you. Okay. Any other question? Because I have one online.
I just wanted to add one more thing to what you said.
Microphone? You gave me the microphone back to him.
Sorry! I thought that was it, but you mentioned something interesting. And sometimes it's the tourists that are racist towards the locals. And you see that a lot in Asia when you travel. That
In Africa?
A lot towards the host countries themselves, which I thought was absurd, since you are, in another, culture.
You are the one going, right?
Exactly, but you can see it, and it's really, really, you can see it obvious. Yeah, sorry, thank you. I just wanted to.
Yeah, of course. It is.
So this just came up to my mind because I like doing research. Is there any research that actually tells you who's partaking into mass tourism, over tourism, like Western, white, middle age, compared to maybe younger people or from other, do we have a picture who's doing, contributing to mass tourism, over tourism?
Well, yes, there are those surveys, there are visitor profiles, but we are witnessing that visitor profiles are getting, that we're having a larger variety of people engaging in tourism. So we have some stereotypical images of visitors which are no longer that valid as they used to be. So we are seeing new countries developing as source markets. We are seeing also, due to democratization, as we mentioned, also some social classes engaging more extensively in traveling. Another huge contributor to this democratization process are low-cost airlines. So we are seeing this growing diversity. So we should not be so stereotypical in our thinking, because we are missing a large part of the market this way. Thank you for this. Excellent.
So our last question, you keep the microphone just in case you want to make any comments, okay? It's online, okay. It's from OB, and he's asking, which is a very important point, because we didn't talk about AI so far, right?
That's our next discussion.
Next destination, right?
Exactly.
So he's talking about, with the introduction of AI, our job secured, how is tourism evolving, what is the future of tourism with AI? It's a big question.
Okay, so let's get out the crystal ball to answer that. We cannot be sure about how it's going to evolve. Now we are seeing the first applications of AI in tourism. So we are seeing that some professions are getting heavily, or will be heavily influenced. For instance, people in revenue management are going to be, shall I say, replaced, or shall I say empowered. By AI. Okay, so in some cases, so we are seeing people working at front office.
I was a revenue manager, so I
can. So you know what we are talking about.
Yes.
Then we are seeing a growing number of hospitality businesses doing a work with the front office. So no more receptionists being needed.
Yeah.
So we are seeing hotels keeping their receptionists, not because they need to have them in place, but because they want to provide a more personalized experience to their guests. But now the technology is there to totally forgo the classical check-in procedure. You can access your room without having any interaction with a human being. It's not necessary. So we are seeing that technology is affecting some professions within the broader tourism and hospitality industry. We are seeing new hospitality concepts that are high-tech, but there will always be place for high-touch hospitality. It's not going to go away.
Okay.
So there will always be people who want to interact with human beings, who want to get to know other people, who want to feel pampered. So AI is going to affect us. In what way? Let's be patient and see how this all will develop.
Yeah. Do you guys want to make a comment? I usually tell the students, we love AI to make our check-ins, to do our procedures. It's so much easier, definitely. But when we have a problem, we want to see a person.
Exactly.
We don't want to see an AI in front of you. And that's why we're still there. We're still going to be there, definitely, because this mindset is very important. Especially when we have a problem, when we have an issue. We want to see a person, we want to talk to someone, we want to feel validated, we want to see that our problems are listened and solved, which is the most important. Dr. Dimitris, thank you so much. Let's clap our hands for his participation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I could discuss these topics the whole day, tourism and marketing. Imagine, we never had a tourism specialist here in our Café Scientifique. It's our first time ever. I'm so proud. Thank you so much for coming here and talking to us. I also want to say thank you to my colleagues. They are here, my students, my colleagues that are working to make this Café Scientifique one more time beautiful. Thank BSPI for hosting us. Thanks our people at home.
It has been really an honor for me being here, talking to you. Many thanks to everybody involved in this quite unusual and very pleasant discussion format.
Nice.
I really am happy being at this Café Scientifique.
That's good.
And I encourage any colleague who is considering this to come.
To come, right?
It's a really great format for exchanging, some thoughts, some knowledge with other people. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ciao, ciao.